and I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So, hey, cheers to everybody in the chat.
They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Well, hello. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. My name is Sean. Kevin is not here. We are trying something new this year. I'm going to host the Canucks discussions. We're going to try, I think, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. I know today's Wednesday, but we're going to try early in the week, and then Flames Talk will be later in the week. We're still trying to iron out our scheduling for that. I know we said on last Thursday's podcast that we would have done it on Sunday or Monday. I'm just going to flat out come out because I think it's important to be honest, especially when it comes to mental health. I had a mental health day. I'm fine. I just needed to sort of step away, but we're good to go now. There's nothing wrong with having bad days. There's nothing wrong with feeling the way I did. You just got to find a way to move on and get going again. So I'm back. We're good. And I've brought a friend, someone who we haven't seen since when, Tyler?
Oh, my goodness. Months, it seems like, because we took a hiatus there during the summer, and I missed quite a bit of the summer programming as well. Sean, good to see you. Love you, man. Nice to be back together. Yes, like you said, we're just going to get after it here after a little reset.
Yeah. All right. So tonight we've got the Canucks versus the Seattle Kraken in Abbotsford.
Mm-hmm.
So the Canucks have now played. This will be their fifth preseason game tonight.
So,
yeah. So they played 4 already. The first one you just throw it out the window, kick it on its way out, and don't give it. Just move on, right? Because 10-0 first game of the preseason. When the Flames basically dressed their whole starting lineup, and the Canucks dressed junior players and the Abbotsford Canucks.
Yeah.
So, but Tyler, what are you thinking, and what are your thoughts going into this season?
Yeah, and you mentioned
same old, or what's up?
Well, I think it's odd, like. Anybody I talk to about the team, we all seem to be feeling the same way, and that is we're not like down on the team and predicting that it's going to be a horrendous season or anything like that. But there's just hard to feel optimistic about anything great happening, right? I think we've been beaten down enough over the last few years with how things have gone to, not have unrealistic expectations about the playoffs. And frankly, it's kind of refreshing from the organization itself. Listening to Jim Rutherford and Patrick Galvin and the coaching staff throughout this preseason and the training camp, even they're saying there's a whole lot that has to go right to make the playoffs with this team. So, it's good. Like the fans are smart. Let's be honest with the fans, and I like that. So now maybe there'll be a little bit of pressure taken off the team here to start the season, because it sure seemed like. The professional athletes, and you wouldn't think that the noise outside would put that much pressure on them, but these last couple of years they got off to horrendous starts and just sunk their season, and it almost makes you wonder if their expectations were just unrealistic and they felt that weight of the expectations.
Yeah, it's definitely either show me before I believe you sort of mentality of a lot of Canucks fans this year, including myself, even though I am I try and be more cautiously optimistic than most of vocal Canucks fans, especially on
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah.
But it's so hard not to say until I see something different. I feel like I don't know what are fair expectations for this team.
Yeah.
I think you can
And then
say
it was
that
hard to get. It's been hard to get a read through the preseason. I mean, obviously, it doesn't matter that much. And you mentioned the lopsidedness in the rosters with that first preseason game in Calgary. But I mean, giving up double digits in goals is not exactly the way anybody wanted to start out. The fans are cheering, "We want 10." Ugh. Let's hope
So
that's
glad I didn't
flushed
go
out
to
of the
that game.
system pretty soon. Hey?
Yeah, I think you could make the argument that almost everything went wrong for the Canucks over the past couple seasons.
Mhm.
So even if they can, if not everything goes right, but most of it goes right, they should be in the hunt. And I think that I like what a lot of moves that they've made. I think short term and long term, it makes a lot of what they've done has made sense. But again, it's just like I can say that, but still, the gut feeling is I just don't know what to expect, and until they show me otherwise, I don't know what. Yeah, until they show me otherwise, keep the expectations are unknown or low is the best way to describe where I'm at with the Canucks.
Yeah, and I mean, if you do want to do the whole, playoff, which teams are in, which teams are out. I mean, I'll say just myself between Vegas, Edmonton, and LA. There's not a lot of opportunities to make the playoffs once they're, if you assume that they're going to make it, and I think they're looking like they will. Never know; it's a long season, but so it's a tough road for the Canucks. They got to get off to a good start.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into some training camp and preseason thoughts here. Let's start with the forwards. We've seen Niels Hoglander get a prime look in alongside Pettersson and Kuzmenko. With partially, I think that's because Mikheyev is out. We still don't know when he's going to be back. But he's also sort of been all over the lineup a little bit here. Do we see is this going to be an every game role for Hoglander to start, or is he going to have to work his way in?
Yeah, I think based on what we saw last year, regaining the trust of the coaching staff is going to be tough for him. I think he is going to have to work his way back in, and look, with this big house cleaning, I mean, there's like that occurred last year. there's nobody's really that safe in terms of trust with the coach, right? Like, so it's hard to imagine Niels Hoglander having an everyday spot in this lineup right now.
Yeah, he didn't play under. Hoglander did not play under Tocchet. He was down in Abbotsford pre-Tocchet taking over, and he wasn't called up due to waiver eligibility reasons.
Yeah.
And Tocchet has been talking him up about in terms of he's the first guy on the ice, last guy off, first guy in the gym, last guy out. He came into camp in great shape. So he's done everything he needs to do. He just needs to show it on the ice. There was times where he was a little undisciplined in Abbotsford last year in the playoffs. But if he can be a hard forechecker who can win board battles, he will be the next Phil Giuseppe for Rick Tocchet, becoming a favorite of his very quickly, I think. And I think Hoglander can have that in his game. He's got that tenacity.
He does,
in his game to be able to do that. So yeah, I do think he's going to have to work his way in.
Yeah.
But if he can be a consistent forechecker and win those board battles again consistently, then I think you will see him work his way into an every game player pretty quickly.
Yeah, and then, the hope is that his time in the AHL will finally yield some results. if he's committed, and it's seems like he's had a good mental reset from that experience and coming into camp this year and really understanding what it's going to take to be a professional and stay at the NHL level. Now he's just going to need to run with whatever opportunity he gets and really prove it now when it counts. What I always hope to see with players in the minor leagues is when it doesn't look like a challenge for them anymore, then it's time to make the jump up. But still, it can be a pretty big leap in terms of all those little things and how quickly you have to process the game. And if you're not improving, you're getting worse, right? That's the old John Madden saying. So hopefully he'll get off to a good start as well.
Yeah, and then as I mentioned, Phil Giuseppe has been a big. He's been a player who's worked his way into Tocchet's good graces, favorite of the coaching staff. He's taken back up his left wing spot along with Miller and Besser that he ended last season with. I do tying these two players together. If Hoglander can become that tenacious forechecker and guy who can win board battles, he's got a higher offensive ceiling than PDG does. And I would hope that if Hoglander can work his way into an everyday role, it would be a top 6 role, which would bump Giuseppe down into the bottom 6, which I think is a better spot for him. But he played really well down the stretch on the wing, on Miller's wing with Brock Besser. I don't think it's a sustainable long-term solution, but until players like a Hoglander or a Podkolzin, we'll talk about him later, really stake a claim to those spots, I think he's a decent short-term option.
Yeah. But just the fact, you mentioned a few names there. Just the fact that there is, a few that are competing for spots as opposed to, like no debate over this. That's probably a good thing. That'll help them all push each other, and they all seem to have some similar issues in terms of just being able to really think the game at the NHL level consistently.
Yeah, think the game, or just they're missing just that one piece that's going to be able to make them pop. And for one, we talked about everything going right for the Canucks. One of those things that needs to go right is to have one of those young players, a Hoglander, a Podkolzin, pop this year, become a full-time NHLer, someone that can be in at least your top 9 consistently, and you're comfortable with that and it makes sense.
Yeah.
And one of those guys, if Hoglander or Podkolzin can do that by Christmas, that'll go a long, long way to helping the Canucks take that next step and become hopefully a playoff team.
One thing that I found striking from just different media appearances with Rick Tocchet leading up to the season here has been some pretty frank commentary about the shape of players and in the case of Dakota Joshua, I think I think he said something to the effect of needing to pick it up. How that translates with the team, I don't know. But from a fan point of view, it's refreshing that there's nobody's sugarcoating the realities of the team. Like it kind of speaks to the mediocrity of the roster, but it's also a message from the coach to say, hey, that like if you pick it up, there is a chance for you here. And that message is being delivered in public, and that it's a strong message, and I think the guys are listening to that.
Yeah, and like I said, just to catch Mark David up, I think we're okay with PDG in the top 6 short term, but ideally we want to see a Hoglander or a Podkolzin take that role and going forwards.
Yeah.
And speaking of Podkolzin, he got sent down to the AHL. He's a top 10 pick in the NHL draft. It's not ideal. But I think his development has been all over the place. In the KHL, he wasn't given the right. I don't think he was developed properly. He was brought in and has had 3 coaches since he's been brought in. Was he there with Travis Green?
I think so, yeah.
So it's like it's really, really tough. I think him going back down to the AHL, learning under Jeremy Colleton, who I think his stock has grown massively since joining the franchise and becoming the head coach of the Abbotsford Canucks. And then growing from there, I think and getting some stability in his development will help him a lot. But this still is a bit of a make or break season for him, because after this season, just like Hoglander after last season, he becomes waiver eligible.
Yeah.
And at that point, then it's make or break for him to be a Canuck.
Yeah. I mean, once we actually see the final opening day roster, it'll be interesting to see whether he, gets on as like the 23rd guy or whatever. But yeah, when you I'm just reading a quote from Sunday from Rick Tocchet, and he references how Podkolzin doesn't move his feet. I mean, that's pretty damning commentary. You better get that solved in a hurry.
Well, I think the issue with Podkolzin is he's thinking too much, so that's why his feet aren't moving.
Yeah, it has to
He's
come
not playing
naturally.
instinctually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's I think that goes back to how bad his development has been since KHL, and now 3 coaches in playing in the NHL. So I think he needs to start playing instinctually, and once he starts playing instinctually, I don't think he'll ever be that high endpoint producing forward, but I still think he'll be a very effective forward who can play in your top 6 or top 9 and be, again, he's got the build and the strength to be able to be that board battle winner that Tocchet specifically wants out of his wingers on this team.
And you just have to be reliable away from the puck. You can't be caught out of position all the time. You can't be losing those one-on-one battles. That's just been killing the Canucks over the last couple of years here, where just defensively it just turns into a gong show, because those little things there's just too many guys on the team that were failing at that. And it sure seems like the coaching staff with certain guys that are more on the fringe really hammering the point home to these guys that if they don't get it figured out, somebody else is going to get a shot.
Well, yeah, you've got Arshdeep Bains, who's got a long look in key spots during camp and preseason. You've got Tristan Nielsen coming up that the NHL that the Canucks looks like they're starting to grow on, and a few other wingers that are built. Aiden McDonough, that they're starting to build a bit of build that critical mass of prospects that are going to be pushing these players going forwards, which is good. It's still not there where you need it to be, but it's growing. And they're finding these players in outside of draft. They're finding these players late in draft. They're finding players in all different aspects, which is really good for the Canucks. And that's what you need to do. Yeah. So I think Arshdeep Bains is someone to watch going forwards. I think he's someone who came out of the WHL. Kevin was was yelling at us for the past 2 years, I think, about him. And he's going to be someone who I think is going to push for at least a bottom 6 spot, at least as a potential injury call up this year, maybe going into next season as well. So yeah, they've got to make sure that they're watching their back, because if they, as you said with the John Madden quote, if you're not improving, you're getting worse.
You're getting worse, yeah.
So, is there anything, any of the forwards that or camp battles, preseason thoughts on the forwards that I missed there, Tyler?
Not particularly, no. It's we just need to start seeing some results here. I think in terms of some of the bigger names, obviously, this being kind of like a new era of the Canucks. They have a new captain with Quinn Hughes. How does that affect JT Miller? He seemed like a very big personality in the room. There was a lot of talk, within the Canucks community last year about, who's more the alpha with the team when things are not going well. Was it Miller? Was it Horvat? Was it, be interesting to see how all those dynamics kind of unfold. And then speaking of another forward, Connor Garland, are we going to see something from Connor Garland this year?
That's another big thing is again, talking about things that need to go right for the Canucks. Besser and Garland are two forwards that need to take they need to take a step up. And it's funny we talk about Besser that way when he scored 50 some points last year, but he just wasn't a full like his defensive game, at least under Boudreau, wasn't good enough. And he has shown that he can do that in the past. But hopefully that under Tocchet and then both Besser and Garland can get back to the levels that we know that they can be. I mean, last game Besser became freaking Adam Oates and become assist master.
Yeah.
Brock Besser's a playmaker now.
Well, and if all you have to do to kind of like when I bring up the point about Connor Garland, it's like, you can bring up the cap friendly list and you just look at the names just in a list of who the forwards are. I mean, it drops off quickly after the top six, right? Like it's like Beauvillier, Garland, Kuzmenko, like we need you guys. Let's hope for some big production from those guys this year. And speaking of Kuzmenko, I mean, it's just so infectious watching him, with his energy, and I'm sure that'll be very helpful to the team. But now he's a bit more of a known quantity around the NHL, so that'll present a new challenge.
Yeah, but he's so good at finding the soft spots to receive those passes and have those tap-ins that if teams are starting to game plan for that, that's going to open up stuff for Petey, for whoever else is on that line going forwards or on the power play as well. That's going to open up shooting lanes for other players on that power play, whether it's Quinn Hughes who wants to shoot more, whether it's Petey, JT Miller. That's what's so nice. Like that when those players become known quantities and teams start game planning for them, it opens up opportunities for other linemates. And then it's that when you have that much talent on the line, it's just that vicious circle of who do you cover.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think maybe he might have a slower start. But I think that should open up opportunities for other players, and then he'll get his goals. Though I think his shooting percentage was very high, but I think that's more. I think that's something that you don't look at as a bad thing, because I think that's more design as opposed to just a happy outcome type deal.
Yeah.
All right, I think. Yeah, so I think let's go to the defense, and you talked about it there a little bit there, Tyler, with the new captain Quinn Hughes. Early returns. I know it's preseason, but it looks like putting that letter on his chest is it feels like we're going to get another level of Quinn Hughes this year.
I would hope so. I mean, I think with a lot of guys when they they receive that honor and it's that decision's not made unless the team's really behind it. How that's figured out through the coaching staff. I'm sure all teams kind of do things their own way, but this is a boost to a guy that should be seen as a star player. And now he can go out there and I think with a little more pride, a little more energy, and pep in the step, shall we say. Wearing the C, hopefully he'll be able to take his game to another level. But at the same time, you don't want him trying to be doing too much either. I mean, he's already a defenseman that is a bit all over the ice, and it's just I don't want him to be trying to do too much as a defenseman. The other thing is too that's nice about a captain as a defenseman is that it's sort of when you have a forward that's the captain and they're in a scoring slump like that, if the microscope on that becomes even more of an issue, I think. Yeah. And yes, although Quinn is somebody that's counted on to provide some production from the back end, I think it's less of a pressure point, I think, on a captain if they're having some scoring issues. So I like that part about it with defense. And then just generally, I think as a personality, it sure seems like Quinn Hughes is the right choice. He's obviously not lacking in confidence communicating both internally and externally through the media. He says what he thinks. Might be a little bit too blunt at times, but I think we can all appreciate that you're getting some honest, genuine commentary from Quinn Hughes when he does face the press, and hopefully that will continue as well here. And then being able to just hold teammates accountable inside the dressing room when that's required as well. As in terms of like style of player and example setting, I mean, Elias Pettersson certainly checked a lot of boxes, but I don't know if the communication skills and maybe the the personality is there necessarily for him to be doing that job.
Yeah. We haven't actually heard from you in terms of what you thought of the decision to name Quinn Hughes as captain as opposed to Pettersson or JT Miller.
I mean, I would have been fine with either PD or Quinn Hughes, but the media part's important. Like if we can talk about style of play and stats and how much that counts in terms of inspiration and leading the team in those regards. But on a professional team, I mean, being able to communicate with the fans and being able to kind of wear it for the team when things are not going well, I think Quinn's definitely suited for that over PD.
Yeah, I would even after PD was named captain, and one of the first questions, after Quinn was named captain, one of the first questions PD faced was about his contract status, and he took a very argumentative sort of approach to it, saying, "Well, it's not a big deal. You guys make it a big deal," and I think that's as good as that is, and then nothing wrong with it. It's not something I want from a captain.
No, you got to be showing that steadiness all the time, regardless of what kind of silly questions you might be receiving or how badly things are going. And Quinn can be a little prickly at times as well, but I think that he's more English being a first language for him compared to PD. I don't think things get lost in translation so much. I think Quinn will be able to express himself a lot more clearly.
Yeah, and if the Canucks were the Canucks were in a sort of a smaller market in the States, I think you could get away with a Pettersson as a captain. You could get away with a JT Miller as a captain, but with that damned media and just the microscope, that the team is under, I think you do need someone who's a little more polished on the media side.
Throw Dylan's comment up about Thatcher Demko for a sec, because I want to address that one here. There's a guy as well that is very eloquent in when he talks to the media, Thatcher Demko, and if it weren't for the fact that he was the goaltender, then that would have been a good consideration. But we've been down that road before with the Canucks, and it's kind of like what I talked about earlier with pressure on a guy that's the captain of the team, like the production. If a goalie's struggling, do you really need him to be carrying all the expectations that come with leading the team as well? I mean, it's already kind of a singular position in which you have to project leadership, anyways. But Thatcher Demko is he's got a lot of those same attributes as Quinn Hughes.
Yeah. All right. So with Hughes, the question becomes, who's his partner? He played with Luke Shen until he got traded last year. There was some time with Noah Juleson last year. The guy who seems to be getting a lot of it is Cole McWard this year. Signed out of the NCAA. He played like 5 games last year, and I saw him play live in Penticton. And from what I saw from there, plus last year, and then a little bit of preseason this year, like I think he's got promise. I don't know if he's the right guy you want alongside Quinn Hughes right now, but I don't know who is at this point. Rick Tocchet has stated he is a lefty-righty guy, which does limit things.
Right.
So the Canucks didn't make a waiver claim on a player like Jacob Bernard-Docker out of from the Ottawa Senators. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think he's worth a look, but again, in a different way from Phil Giuseppe. He seems like a short-term option until they can find who that long-term option is.
Yeah, and the issue with the Canucks defense is, with all due respect to the players that are there, it's just not that deep. So if you put Quinn Hughes with, say, Myers or Hronek, then that leaves you, what's your second pair, right? Like, it leaves
Yeah.
leaves you with not much. So that's going to be the challenge. And I think we've even heard from Rick Tocchet that they might be kind of figuring that out as they go too, right? Like, he's already kind of set the expectations of, hey, you're gonna be playing with a lot of different partners here already.
Yeah, it's a defense by committee, and
yeah.
I mean,
that's
media,
that's
the media has run with it,
yeah,
which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But I think it really is just figuring it out as they go. Because
that's a diplomatic way of saying we don't really know yet.
Yeah, they brought in Ian Cole, they brought in Carson Soucy, but they're both left-handed guys.
Mm-hmm.
And if Tocchet is someone who wants to have more of a lefty-righty balance on the blue line, then you've got Cole McWard, you've got Noah Juleson, Jet Wu, Philip Johansson.
So there's Guillaume Brisebois, Christian Wolanin. I don't know I think you mentioned Carson Soucy already, but those are some of the other D-men.
Those are all lefties, right?
Yeah.
So I was trying to name off all the right shot guys that are going to be potential options there. And then maybe they're waiting for Ethan Bear to come back. I think that might be something there. I mean, he's supposed to be back in December, so that is a bit more longer term than medium term than I would like for a Cole McWard, because as much as I like him, I think he's better off playing bigger minutes, like playing down in the AHL and playing and growing his game. But he's looked good. He's looked okay. He hasn't looked spectacular. I wouldn't call him solid. I was about to, but I don't think that's the right word. But I do think that it's not. I think he's just over his head at this point. And I think he just needs to take that step back, play in the AHL, and build up his confidence there. So, but when you don't have those options, and I think maybe they're just hoping that the right defenseman comes available on waivers before they really make that decision. But I don't know if that right defenseman is going to come across the waiver wire.
Yeah. I just want to clarify: is Ethan Bear actually signed?
He is not, I think, but they're everything that is that this sounds like there is mutual interest to negotiate a new contract once he's healthy.
Okay, there you go. Well, then their cap situation at the time will factor in all of that. Yeah.
And then one of the players we didn't mention who is also a left shot, also signed out of NCAA along with Cole McWard, is Akito Hirose.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you talked about, Tyler, the frankness of talking about the fitness. And he said that the Hirose's fitness was not up to par, but he did really like the hockey sense and his decision making on the ice. Based off of what I saw, at least again in person in Penticton at the Young Stars game, and then Young Stars tournament, as well as the preseason, I don't think it's necessarily the conditioning. I think it's the strength that they're worried about. I think that's my best guess. I could be completely wrong, but my best guess is that's more of a strength issue.
Yeah, and Rick Tocchet has said too, like, he has to get stronger. His mind is great, but he has to get stronger. So it does seem to be
so it's more of a strength thing with Hirose, because that kid looks like a player. The one thing, McWard's only 22. Hirose's 24, so he's a little bit older, but I still think both of them have NHL potential if they can get, like, I think McWard just needs some more reps, and I think more time to get there. Hirose needs to get stronger. If he can get stronger and be able to win again, it's all about, for especially Rick Tocchet, it's all about board battles. And puck battles. If Hirose can get strong enough to consistently win board battles and puck battles, he will be on this team going for a few years here.
Yeah,
because I think he definitely has the NHL like hockey sense and decision making. He just needs that. He just needs the NHL body.
Yep. And that's
So-
something that they can work on, right? I mean, as long as
Yeah.
his IQ is there, you got something to work with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, the people, I know, saw some people say, "Did he get the message?" I'm pretty sure he did. It's just sometimes it just doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
As fine tuned as the science, the fitness science is, and I kind of wish we had Devin on right now.
Yeah.
'Cause I'd love to get his take on this.
Mhm.
But it doesn't always follow the plan that you want it to.
No.
So,
No.
as someone who's trying,
That's a nice way, just a polite way of putting it.
as someone who's trying to get back into shape,
Yeah.
it definitely doesn't always go as planned.
Yeah.
So I keep don't count out Hirose. Like I think he will be someone to watch, to be someone on this team next year for sure. If not, I think he will definitely be a call up option this year as well.
Mhm.
And then the Canucks did make a trade. I mean, again, something we haven't gotten your thoughts on there,
Yeah.
Tyler.
Yeah, Tanner
Trading
Pearson.
Tanner
departing.
Pearson and a
Yeah.
third round pick for Casey DeSmith. What are your thoughts on that, as well as DeSmith as a backup?
Yeah, it's too bad that the cap situation and what happened with Pearson's hand hand injury has led to this situation of him having to be traded. But it's there's a guy with Stanley Cup experience and I think offered a lot off the ice for the Canucks as a team. But I had to make a move. That's a guy that could get something back for. And I liked Spencer Martin. Got to see him play in the one game I watched live last year against the Penguins. Worked hard. It was a great story, but I think we've seen enough to realize the guy's not going to be able to take on a steady load of NHL level goaltending. Once Demko went down and Martin was the guy, he struggled with that. He was great in short stretches as a backup, but Casey DeSmith, I think the track record with the Penguins offers a lot of reason to feel confident with him as the backup goalie, and I think should be a clear improvement over Spencer Martin.
Yeah, and I think from the couple, the playing time he's gotten Smith has gotten in the preseason. Yeah, I definitely feel a lot more comfortable with the even if you want to go down to Artur Silovs as your third goaltender set up, as opposed to having Spencer Martin there.
Yeah.
And yeah, so losing Spencer Martin on waivers, not a big deal, right?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you'd hope not, but no, I think they're okay with Silovs, number 3 on their depth chart. And then DeSmith, 905 save percentage, 3.17 goals against average last year in 38 games with the Penguins. A little bit better stats the year before, 2.79 ERA and a 914 save percentage in 26 games. So that's serviceable for a backup. It's just the level of experience he has playing at the NHL level gives me a lot more faith in him as being a number 2.
Tyler, it's GAA, not ERA. I know you're still in baseball mode.
Did I say ERA? Goals
You
against
said
average.
ERA.
I did it too. Okay. Yes, goals against average. Similar stats. But
The Jays are done now, Tyler. Like,
it'd be
you can
interesting.
focus fully on hockey now.
Maybe we should have earned goal average. Like, okay, if it really was a softie, that's on you. If it was a pizza, then maybe you get charged with an unearned goal against or something. We're gonna have to work those stats.
All right.
Yes,
so,
Yes, it is it is again fitting to be on here after the Blue Jays got eliminated. Time to get all that baseball stuff out of my head.
All right, so we've gone through this sort of what we saw so far. We've got 2 remaining games, including tonight versus the Kraken.
Yep.
What are your expectations for the final 2 preseason games?
Well, I want to see some certain names that that have been challenged by the coach to pick it up. We didn't talk. I don't know if we brought up Dakota Joshua a little earlier, but there was a guy that's been been given kind of the stern warning from Rick Tocchet. Other than that, I mean, I it's. Just call me when the season starts. I will be down in Vancouver next week. I will be attending the home opener, and so I'm just like, can we just get on with that already? that'll be great to see. I don't know. Just I never really set big expectations for the preseason, John. It's nice to finish on a win. Just kind of go into the first regular season game with that as a bit of a positive feeling, and playing with a lot of your A lineup. But other than that, I mean, it's still an opportunity for them to assess talent.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, we've got the lineup for tonight's game. It's not the A lineup.
Yeah.
I think Petey is dealing with some sort of illness, so he's not playing. So they've got Pia Suter in his spot on that top line, centering Bolivier and Kuzmenko. Then you've got Dakota Joshua, Niels Amon, and Jack Stagnica as a line. Then this is an interesting one. You've got Niels Hoglander, Aturatu, and Brock Besser as a line. And then Arshdeep Baines, Max Sasson, and Linus Carlson as a line as well. And then you got Susie and Ronick, Wolanin and Myers, and Brisebois and McWard as your defense, and DeSmith and net.
Yeah.
I think my expectation is just I want to see more just the systems. I want to see the systems and the process. I want
it to look organized.
Yes, because that was the
I know that just seems like such a
basic.
Doesn't it just seem like such a basic thing to ask for?
Well, going back 2 years, it was part of our freaking intro for a little bit there. That the Canucks looking like a beer league
team. Yeah.
Yeah, it just was like no, like I want to see structure. I want to see organization. I want to see the process being right.
Yeah.
So like tonight, see what Suter looks like with the getting a look at who might be the wingers on the top line. That's something to look for that tonight with that, because Pia Suter was brought in as center depth to be like more of a third line center and someone who can step up if there's an injury. So I want to see that. Aturatu is someone that I think the Canucks are hoping can be a top 9 center for them, hopefully next season going forwards. And so he's getting a nice plum opportunity with Hoglander and Besser. See how Susie and Ronick work together, I think is it, and then see how McWard does without Hughes. I think that in terms of tonight's game, that's the big ones that I want to look at, as well as you talked about, see how Joshua does. I think he has taken those comments to heart and has really stepped up his game in the preseason since then.
Yeah.
Because he's someone that, again, I've mentioned the board battle, puck battle a lot in this podcast, because I think those are big things for the Rick Tocchet and the coaching staff, and I think he has stepped up in that aspect. Being physical, being an absolute pain in the ass to play against. That's what they want from Dakota Joshua. So I want to see that from him tonight. And
when the coach makes a statement in public like that, I mean, yes, maybe it's a little bit of Rick Tocchet just being a media comfortable type of guy who worked in the media prior to being the Canucks coach, but anytime something like that is floated in the media, the coach is hoping that the player will respond with, take it personally and use it as fuel and come back and prove the guy wrong. So that's what, we're hoping to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then as well as, I expect the game on Friday versus the Flames to be basically what the opening lineup is going to be, minus maybe 1 or 2 players who are still battling.
Yeah.
And I want to see, same thing, the process be there for everyone. I want to see the top end players imposing their will on the game. So, Yeah.
And just a note for people: the game tonight's not on Sportsnet. Canucks.com. I think has something to do with it being in Abbotsford. I guess Sportsnet maybe choosing not to do a production out there in a non-NHL arena. They have before, but you know, you know how things are in the media business these days. Anywhere to cut some costs, but they'll be back on Sportsnet for their final preseason game on Friday against the Flames, and you know, that's at least tonight. Though the folks out in Abbotsford get a chance to, you know, it is just a preseason game with not the A lineup, but it's a rare experience to come out and see what is theoretically the NHL team play.
Yeah, and is there any other sort of battles or stories that we haven't talked about that you think is very intriguing for the Canucks?
I have to admit, you know, I was pretty disconnected from hockey over the summer, just between even just personally just being so busy playing softball, and then, you know, our real lives, and trying to mix some golf in between, and then there was footy to watch. There was a Women's World Cup. We just had the Canada-Jamaica qualifiers on the women's Olympic tournament recently. So there's been all this other stuff going on in sports. The NFL started, obviously. Fantasy football is a big thing, and I'm involved in the pool as well. And so there's been all this stuff. So now, I just mentioned a few minutes ago the Blue Jays are out. It's too bad. Just how poorly they played in these last two games against Minnesota. But now I'm, sort of getting my brain wrapped around hockey again. Last Saturday, got back out there in stripes again for the first time this season in Prince Rupert, and that went reasonably okay. So the hockey awareness is starting to come back. But it was pretty disconnected over the off season, I have to admit. And I think that was okay. Yeah. It's healthy.
No, you do need that. And I think as long as this offseason has felt, because it's been the first like proper full offseason we've had in hockey in 3 years.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and maybe it's just because the Canucks didn't make a big splash in free agency, you know, this time around. And you know, there's been so much change recently. It just felt like it was just different. Like there was less to kind of chew on in the off season, it seemed like.
Yeah.
From a Canucks perspective.
I think the big one for me is just what happens with that first pair right side defenseman.
Yeah.
I think that's the big one. If it's McWard, God, I would love to see him like thrive. Mostly because I would love to just see a lot of the fans and media who have been like just so negative about it just eat their words. But I think that's the spot to watch for me. I think is that one, because I think, as we talked about, the other big one is that sort of that fourth top six winger role with Phil Giuseppe. But I think he's a good sort of. I'm more confident in him in that role than I am with what the options are in that right side defense.
And let's admit, there's just a little bit of you that wants to be able to keep saying Phil Giuseppe on this show.
Oh, every time I try, I feel like I butchered every time.
You just want this.
I feel like I butchered every time, but I'm doing it better than Dollywall.
You are.
So.
You are. You're tippy-toeing across that part of the script.
All right, and then this year we're doing one at the end of the podcast. We're doing like one last question. It's usually up to whoever's not hosting, directing to do it. But I think I have one. I think it's a good one. With the expectations this year being weird and unknown, but there's been a lot of talk about the start for the Canucks. Mm-hmm. How is the start? Do they have to get off to a great start to make you feel good, or even if they do, because they're starting off against the Oilers, right?
Yeah.
Which is
games.
If you listen to the 650 morning show, Jason Bruff talks about it every time he talks about the Canucks. He prefaces with, "We're talking about the start. They're playing against the Oilers the first two games," and then you're just like, okay, how important is this start for the Canucks? Like, do they need to get say after 10 games they're 500, is that okay?
I
Or do
was
they
gonna
need to
say,
be
yeah.
6-4 or 7-3 or better for you to feel good?
I would take 500 through the first month.
Yeah.
But after that, the pace has got to start, moving in a more winning direction, I think, or they're in trouble. I would take 500 to start. I mean, yeah. We should say though, like, why are we afraid of the Oilers? Like, I
And
don't
there's this guy named
know.
Connor McDavid who just seems to
I don't
score
like
at will at
that.
times.
Like, just assuming that it's gonna. I know, but yeah. But look, I know they're a strong team and they have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and it's a good. But like, you can't be afraid of that. Like, I don't think the team feels that way, but like, let's not overinflate. The Oilers compared to whatever else they have to deal with in the October schedule. I mean, they're at Tampa Bay, they're at Florida, they've got a couple against Nashville. I mean, those are stronger teams as well. So, 500 to start the first month, I think, is realistic.
Yeah, for me, I think it's more about for the first 10 to 15 games. I want it to be more about the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't have, but to an extent, right? You can't have good process, but be three games under 500 after that. No, I want they're 500 and the process is good, I'll feel good. If the process is good and they're winning, oh great, that's gravy. But yeah, I think the process is more important to me than the results, at least to start the season.
Yeah.
All right.
Process over results, but yeah, the results do there. That's what actually counts, right?
Well, because if the process, like, to me, just like, if the process is there and they're 500, the results should follow after that.
Yeah,
as long as they stick to the process,
that's
right?
Exactly it. Yeah.
If the process isn't there and they're finding ways to win, which was the Boudreaux bump, then I'll be worried. If the process is there, and they're really unlucky, that's going to be tough to. You don't want to dig out of that hole. So 500, I think, is okay. Anything less than that, then you start to worry. But I think and again, I think the big thing with the Oiler scare is the power play. The Oilers power play versus the Canucks penalty kill. And the Canucks penalty kill for the past 2 years has been historically bad.
Yeah.
So,
and then, the other thing that we have to remember here is, if the injuries start piling up and the Canucks depth gets tested, I mean, that's where things could really go off the rails. And not to be doom and gloom about it, but I think that's just the reality of what the Canucks have for this season. So we hope that part of the process will work out too.
Yeah. Well,
all right, man.
The second to last preseason game is about to start. I think we'll let everyone go and try and go on to the website and get the stream so they can watch it.
Yep.
I think, we'll be back. I think Kevin's trying to organize a Flames Talk episode later on this week. He'll be back then. And then we'll be back sort of next week to discuss what more sort of predictions for and feelings about the Canucks and the rest of the NHL going into the season. And then, just excited to actually get some regular season hockey that means something.
Yes.
So
it's like the first day of school, there's all that excitement.
It really is, yeah. And that's kind of why I've liked the break from it, because I think the last couple off seasons we've been definitely tried to podcast a little bit more. This year we took that hard break, but I'm now excited to get back into it and get in that. And I'm trying to be the big thing for me this year is that as everyone can tell who's watched this, I can get a little intense. And I'm trying to make sure that I don't get too intense.
Yeah, just wait till the zebras start driving.
Pretty much until that first blown call.
Oh, that's not if, it's when.
All right, Tyler, where can we follow you?
Yeah, on I guess I have to change this now, on X, formerly known as Twitter.com, at TNoble, TNOBLE.
Yeah, I have Beardy Canuck 03 on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
Also on Blue Sky and Threads, because why the fuck not, right?
Yeah.
You can follow Kevin at KEVOLE on those social medias. Schneidz, SCHNIDZ on those social medias. Devin changed his handle. It's no
What?
longer Gordhouse09. It is now, Jesus, I should know this, right?
Oh, I did. I was not prepared for this. What?
Devin is now at Shits and Fucks on the X app.
He had to do that.
Yes, he did.
I just this is like breaking news to me right now. It actually says
SHITZANDFUCKS.
Did he just do this to troll my dad? Wait till my dad hears about this.
And then you can follow
Oh, no.
the podcast at Shifts and Pucks
Yes,
on Twitter
with a P.
/X, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. And then we will see you next time. Thanks for joining us. And let's hope for a good season for the Canucks and not for anyone else, right?
You bet.
All right. Bye for now.